Revolutionary greetings, comrades. There's this theory which says for a formal liberation movement to lose power, it has to split first. This theory is not entirely true. Yes, in some instances, it has happened in history, but in some, it has not happened. So it cannot be taken at face value that for a formal liberation movement to lose power, it has to split. In Zambia in 1991, when the MMD was established, contesting elections for the first time, you will know that Zambia had been a one-party state for years until parties were allowed in 1990 and elections were held in 1991. Some leaders within UNIP, they did not split from UNIP to establish another political formation outside the opposition party, MMD. They left UNIP, or if you like, they split from UNIP and they joined MMD. They did not establish a new political formation. Their joining of MMD strengthened the opposition. Though I never supported MMD, I've always been UNIP, but they strengthened MMD to defeat UNIP in Zambia in 1991. When Edgar Dekere split or left ZANU PF in 1990 and they formed Zoom, we know what happened to him. We know what happened to Dr. Simba Makoni in 2008. He garnered something like 8% of the vote or so. At the time when Edgar Dekere left, we did not have an opposition party. It was soon after the signing of the Unity Accord in 1987. So the splitting or the withdrawal of Edgar Dekere from ZANU-PF did not have a real impact in terms of the electoral politics in Zimbabwe. When Dr. Simba Makoni left ZANU-PF and Dr. Dumiso Dabengwa supported him, they did not join the MDC at the time, or they never joined the MDC. They had to establish a political vehicle. It scored less than MDC in terms of the vote. So to argue that if a liberation movement is split, it automatically means it will lose political power might not be scientifically correct. We saw post 2007, post the Polokwane conference in South Africa, when some members of the ANC left the ANC and established COP. And the rest is history. We know what happened. I'm raising this because suddenly some opposition members, they are now giving sympathy to one Xavier Kasukuwere. They are condemning the courts in Zimbabwe for rejecting his candidature. And they are now fighting in his corner. But who is Xavier Kasukuwere? Xavier Kasukuwere has been ZANU-PF ever since. We have analyzed the factions in ZANU-PF in this YouTube channel that in 2017, politically, the G40 faction that Xavier belonged to was winning against Timla Costa until Timla Costa was supported by the military. In 2018, G40 and Mugabe himself expressed their support for Nelson Chamisa and the MDC alliance. But their support was problematic in that they wanted a 2/3 majority in parliament for ZANU-PF without Emmerson Mnangagwa as president. So the strategy was, you have a 2/3 majority by ZANU-PF in parliament. Then the MDC alliance political influence in the National Assembly. Have Chamisa as president. If Chamisa, assuming Chamisa would have won the presidency, and the ZANU-PF had 2/3 majority in parliament, if Chamisa was not going to assent to their demands, they were going to use their majority in parliament to frustrate or even impeach him. So, had G40 supported the MDC alliance in 2018, to an extent that the MDC alliance won the 2/3 majority, then indeed we're going to see the defeat of ZANU-PF in an election in 2018. But that was not the case. Post-2018, the G40 component, of course it is now split, right? But Kasukuwere, he then now wants to go alone. And the members of the opposition, some members of the opposition, they want to encourage Kasukuwere to stand in the belief, as we discussed in the previous bit, that Kasukuwere might force a runoff if he stands. If there's a runoff, then there are two proposals that have been put on the table. One, I was discussing in a Sunday Times podcast with the Dr. Prof. Ipo Mandazo, was proposing a dialogue before the runoff. Because if this election will produce a runoff will happen in October. So Professor Ipo Mandazo and others then argue that if you have a runoff, before the runoff takes place in October, then in September you slot in a national dialogue conference dubbed the Lancaster House Moment. That's why some in the opposition see Xavier Kasukuwere as a key figure for the purposes of forcing a runoff. Others, of course, think that the presence of Kasukuwere will eat, or Kasukuwere will eat into the support base of ZANU-PF and they give Nelson Chamisa and the Triple C an advantage to score more than 50% plus one and they win the presidency. But who does Kasukuwere represent? His record is there in government. Is a former minister. We all know the mansion that he built as his private residence. We all know the manner in which their faction was looting when he was in government. We all know how he treated the opposition when he was in government. just because now he's out of power and he wants to get back. As they say, it is cold outside. He wants to get back. And the opposition now have sympathy with him to say, let's support Xavier Kasukuwere. And it is this theory again which says you need to split ZANU-PF for it to lose votes or to lose political power. In this election, 2023, as someone was saying, one analyst was saying that this August 23 election, it is less violent. We expected it to be more, to be blood on the floor, given what happened in the by-elections in Matopo, in Sis, constituencies in Matabeleland South, and in some parts of Mashonaland. The by-elections were violent and were anticipating state-sponsored violence. But ZANU-PF has changed the tactics. Instead of using violence, they are now maximizing the mistakes by the opposition, using the courts to bar for now 12 MPs from CCC in contesting. Were told they submitted late their papers. We have discussed this. And someone was saying, are the courts in Zimbabwe now conducting this election because it appears the courts have taken over from the Zimbabwe Electoral Commission? So ZANU-PF has said, okay, we're not going to use violence. Let's use the law to our advantage. Which then means that in the Zimbabwean context, because those that leave the ruling party do not want to be led, and of course, it is understood why they will not want to be led. Because in their corner, they still hold on this view that the opposition in Zimbabwe, the main opposition party in Zimbabwe, it's a Western puppet. And they want to be the alternative. And the opposition supporters or opposition leaders now give sympathy to Xavier Kasukuwere. Kasukuwere does not represent the interests of the working class. Let's just imagine for a moment that the G40 prevailed in the internal fights inside the ZANU-PF. Kasukuwere will be one of the senior leaders. Are we suggesting that if Kasukuwere and all the G40 components were leading government in Zimbabwe, were in the driving seat, will Zimbabwe be democratic to an extent that you can have a free and a fair election? And the answer is no. The reason why Kasukuwere is now writing to everyone, including SADC, is because he wants to get back. It's got nothing to do with the mass of the people of Zimbabwe. It has got everything to do with getting back to loot the resources. So we need to rethink this theory to say, does this theory in the Zimbabwean context work? Where or if a formal liberation movement is to lose power, first and foremost, it has to split. Does it work? So far, it has not worked. So far, it has not worked in South Africa. As I said, yes, it worked in Zambia in 1991 under different conditions. Please share your views in the comment section. I am Mabuto Nicholas Mapena. Please like this video, subscribe. If you're on TikTok, please do follow us. Amandla Comrades.